say I love Sonic CD would be an absolute understatement. Not only is it one of my favorite games in the series, but it's also such a unique game that completely carved its own identity in the franchise, with its colorful stages, phenomenal music, dark atmosphere, and interesting mechanics like the time traveling system, also expanding the world of Sonic with two new fan favorite characters, those being Amy Rose and Metal Sonic. And if you know me, Amy and Metal are some of my absolute favorites in the franchise. With that being said, I always did wonder what led to the creation of Amy and Metal Sonic, and what were their concept designs like? To answer these questions, I'll be getting some help out from the man, the myth, the legend, Mark from Ace Card Gaming. Say hi, Mark.
Hey Eldarin, many thanks for having me on. You have a fantastic channel here, so believe me, the pleasure is all mine. Despite the, shall we say, spotty utilization of their characters at times throughout the series, Amy Rose and Metal Sonic are probably among some of the most important characters in the Sonic universe. At their best, these guys had some of the most heartfelt and badass moments of anyone they shared a game with. And I think it's this limitless potential that attracts so many people to these wonderful characters, where even if Sega don't always do them justice, the fans themselves can picture a million different directions they would love to see their characters go, and stories that they could play crucial roles in. I've thoroughly enjoyed discussing and analysing these two, and their many appearances on my own channel over the past year. So when the opportunity presented itself to delve even further into their origins and discuss the awesome journey they've been on, sign me up.
Aw, heck yeah, man. Join us as we delve deep into the development and concept art of Amy Rose and Metal Sonic. Let's jump right into it. Before we dive into the characters, let's discuss the reason they were even brought into the franchise. Amy and Metal Sonic both made their video game debut in 1993 with one of my personal favorites and the GOAT of GOATs, Sonic CD. And while technically Amy's origin goes back even further, which we'll get into come her side of the video, it's important to understand why exactly they were even going to introduce her in this game. Mark and myself have both extensively covered CD on both the analysis and developmental fronts in our previous videos, so I highly recommend going to go check those out if you want to know the nitty gritty. But in short, after Sonic 1, the development team split, having Sonic 1 lead programmer Yuji Naka and company going over to the California-based Sega Technical Institute to work on Sonic 2, due to Naka having disagreements with Sega of Japan over salary matters and such. Meanwhile, at Sega of Japan, they were working on their next glorious idea for a console edition, being the Sega CD, and wanted to have Sonic headlining the add-on's existence. It seems this happened a lot throughout the years. Anyways, this is where co-creator of Sonic 1 and the original character designer for both Sonic and Eggman, Naoto Oshima, stepped in as lead director and shaping what would become Sonic CD. Oshima originally started working with Sega in 1987, helping design Phantasy Star on the Master System. He'd worked for Sega up until 1999, where he would go on to form his own video game companies, and actually had a game he just worked on released this year.
Legit convinced I'm the only person who actually got any enjoyment out of this game. Had this released on the original PlayStation in the 90s, it would have been right at home.
In terms of the CD component of the Sega CD, it actually added quite a lot in terms of the hardware. As you would think, oh cool, it gives the Genesis the option to have CDs slapped on the side. It actually added a lot more. It added extra processors, memory, and audio features that could at the time of 1993 only be utilized by CD software.
Yeah, the processor was a whole 5 megahertz faster than the Genesis. 5 friggin' megahertz faster than the godly blast processing. I don't even think our tiny minds can comprehend those speeds.
Man, it's crazy to think how far technology has increased from such a small amount of time till now. Regardless, this upgrade in specs therefore opened up more potential technical capabilities the sole Genesis couldn't offer, that Sonic CD took full advantage of with its music, crazy stage backgrounds, and what better way to show what this new add-on could do by upping the ante in the presentation and story department with the addition of Toei Animation and Junio Studios' gorgeous new animations to start and end the game off, along with adding two iconic fan favorites to the mix with Amy and Metal Sonic.
This was actually called the Mega CD in most places outside of North America and Brazil. Yeah, that's right. The whole Mega Drive or Genesis naming issues even extended to their friggin' add-ons. And unfortunately, the issues didn't quite stop there. As Eldarin said, Sonic CD was required as Sega needed a way to cement this add-on in the gaming market as a must-buy accessory. And what better way to do that than by slapping Sonic on there? Foolproof, right? But the release schedule for this thing was so sporadic across the different regions. I mean, Japan got it at the end of 91, but the US didn't see it until the end of 92, with Europe not even getting a look until mid-93. So by the time Sonic CD even rolled around, a lot of people would have long decided that this add-on just wasn't worth the money. and reviews of this machine by the industry steadily declined over its lifespan for having a poor library and substandard ports of cartridge games. So apart from the add-on fever that plagued the Mega Genesis drive, it's really not hard to see why this accessory failed so spectacularly. Seriously though, the amount of add-ons and peripherals for this machine were insane.
Ah yes, the eighth wonder of the world, the Leaning Tower of Sega.
I can only assume Sega's grand plan was to have children all over the world assemble a robot, one piece at a time, that would awaken when complete to conquer the world in their name. I know we're all used to the tower of power that is Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but this fucking thing is taller than the poor kids who had to build it. As someone who grew up at this time, nobody I knew even had this add-on. One guy I knew had a 32X, but he didn't even have Knuckles' Chaotix, so what use was he? The failure of the CD add-on, I think, had huge implications for Sonic CD, and I often find myself wondering how things may have played out differently had this game released on the standard Mega Genesis drive, and a great deal more people actually got to experience Amy and Metal.
While Amy's first game appearance was in Sonic CD, she actually originated from the 1992 Sonic the Hedgehog manga. This manga was an initiative led by Sega of Japan's marketing team with an aim to increase Sonic's appeal to a younger audience. It was very weird, to say the least. The manga revolved around Nicky the Hedgehog, a nerd who was able to transform into his alter ego, Sonic the Hedgehog, along with his buddy Tails, to foil the evil schemes of Dr. Eggman. Nicky had his own cast of characters too, generally consisting of his parents Pauline and Brenda, little sister Tanya, and finally, his girlfriend Amy.
Yeah, from the point of view of someone who has consumed Sonic content purely from a Western point of view, be that the games, comics, or TV shows, a bit weird is definitely how I would describe the manga. There seems to be a few different iterations and interpretations of it floating around, but they all conform to the same basic premise. Nicky and his band of friends going up against Eggman or any other bullies that cross their path, with Nicky using his alter ego, Sonic the Hedgehog, to save the day when needed. Think of Nicky as your Peter Parker and Sonic as your Spider-Man, where Nicky will disappear whenever danger surfaces, only to suddenly reappear as Sonic to dole out some justice. Even his relationship with Amy in some of these versions is very similar to Peter and Mary Jane, where Amy is obviously in love with Nicky, but still experiences feelings for this mysterious hero who shows up to save her before disappearing without a trace. There's definitely more of an American teen movie feel to some of these scenarios here too, with Amy actually goading Nicky into a fight when they're disrespected by the local bully. She even demonstrates some of her later, shall we say, more demanding traits at times, laying the verbal smackdown on Eggman after he kidnaps her. Eggman's goals in some of these stories are also strangely similar to movie Eggman's goals in the Sonic movie, where rather than simply wanting to destroy Sonic, he actually wants to capture and study him so that he can exploit his powers. It never ceases to amaze me the amount of different sources of inspiration the different media arms of this franchise use when creating their content. That well is pretty much bottomless at this stage, and that's just awesome.
I 100% agree, Mark. It's absolutely insane how much future titles and such pull from previous ideas and interpretations. Now about Amy. She was created in response to a request from the character division of Sega's licensing business, who wanted to create a character that could be the mini to Sonic's Mickey. They decided against the traditional trope as Kazuyuki Hoshino, who would do the eventual redesign for Amy for CD, and we'll talk about that more later, put in an interview at Sega's Sonic Boom back in 2013 that it would go against Sonic's personality for him to be locked into a standard cartoon relationship like Mickey and Minnie. Instead, we decided that a one-way relationship where Amy's affection for Sonic is unrequited would be more interesting. Back on the manga, it's also actually where other characters like Charmy B got their start too. The manga was written by Kenji Terada and illustrated by Sango Norimoto. Terada is a Japanese anime script and scenario writer, and also worked on other games like Dark Wizard, atop writing the scripts and scenarios for the first 3 Final Fantasy games. Unfortunately, when I tried to research Norimoto, legit nothing came up, but his contributions will not go unnoticed. The manga was published in Shogaku Yonensei, which was a learning magazine aimed at 9 to 10-year-old elementary school children. Going back to Amy, since this was a marketing push by Sega of Japan, the Sega design team also had a large involvement in the production process. Working hand in hand with Terada to create these new characters was Oshima himself, who directly designed Amy, as he said in a Sonic the Hedgehog developer interview that was originally featured in Nintendo Dream and Famicom Tsushin. Other than Sonic, the only characters I directly designed were Dr. Eggman and Amy Rose. Speaking of her manga design, let's check it out. Her design in the manga was quite different from her final CD design, as we can see here. She has brown fur and hair instead of pink, along with a yellow t-shirt with the red letter E and a big red bow among other things, that drastically changed throughout the design process once she was translated to Sonic CD.
I wonder if this design could have played a small part in the evolution of Amy's design in the Fleetway comics, as fairly early on, along with changes to her quills and fringe, Amy was constantly wearing different t-shirts throughout the series. At this point in time, Amy hadn't gone through her Adventure era redesign yet, so the artists for these comics had very little to go on when trying to refine or evolve her design. And with clothing being a big part of that going forward, they may well have turned to the old manga for ideas. Definitely an interesting one.
It's interesting as her color palette is almost at an inverse compared to CD's, where in the manga, her yellow shirt and green skirt are reversed to a green shirt and brown skirt. The writing on this manga illustration says, Elementary School Manga of Amy. I want to give a big thank you to Chaomix for translating the Japanese writing on all these pictures throughout this video, as he speaks Japanese. He's a super awesome dude, and definitely go check his content out as he makes some killer Sonic discussion, analysis, and art videos. Anyways, once Amy was adopted into the mainline Sonic canon during the development of Sonic CD, the task for the redesign and finalization of her design was placed upon the shoulders of character and special stage designer, among other things for Sonic CD, the esteemed Kazuyuki Hoshino. We've covered Hoshino quite a bit throughout the channel, but he started with Sega back in 1991 with Teddy Boy Blues, but it was not till CD where he entered the Sonic franchise and has helped define his unique style all the way up till Forces, and most likely the new game too. According to Hoshino, there were many voices involved in the creation of Amy, including staff members from various departments, the manga editors, and such. It's certainly interesting, as Amy's final design was an amalgamation of Oshima's tastes in the form of her hairband and trainers, while Amy's mannerisms reflected the kind of traits that Hoshino looked for in women at the time. As we previously established, Oshima did the earliest versions of Amy's design, which was then finalized by Hoshino. That being said, let's start with the earliest prototype sketches we have of Amy, showcasing some real rough sketches of Amy from the back, with her spikes and tail sketched out to the right side of the picture here, along with this full sketch showing off her new dress, shoes, hairband, and such. I found it interesting, as you'll see throughout pretty much all these pictures, her design in terms of clothing was pretty much finalized right from the get-go. This then takes us to the next Oshima piece, where he himself shared and confirmed on Twitter back in 2018 as this being his sketch, along with Sonic there, but who cares about him, am I right? Anyways, this is not only quite detailed, but very close to the final product. But what I found super interesting here about this photo, as she resembles Sonic quite a lot here. I'm going to come back to this picture in a bit. As her design evolves from Hoshino's influence, we'll start to notice something quite interesting.
Yeah, in a lot of the early concept work for Amy, you could pretty easily mistake her for Sonic. This bottom right one in particular looks like it could easily be Sonic about to spin around in the title card for Sonic Mania. The obvious explanation for this is that the brief for Amy was to be a female Sonic. As Eldarin said, a Minnie to his Mickey. And there is absolutely no subtlety with the similarities between this depiction of Amy and Minnie Mouse, with the vast majority of their early poses being strikingly similar. In the early stages of her development, an attempt was made to give Amy a cute nickname, and she was given the moniker Rosie the Rascal, but this never really stuck, especially in the West. The abandoned alias was later repurposed in the Archie comic series for an anti-Amy style character, with unstable and violent tendencies, but was never really used again to reference Amy herself. Being labelled as just a female Sonic obviously wouldn't do the character any favours in the long run, and the people at Sonic Team knew this. So even just as a way of giving Amy's character its own identity, it's not hard to understand why Amy would later go on to get a complete and total makeover, with her 3D debut completely redesigning her. Incidentally, exactly when she flourished most as a character.
From here on out, these are Hoshino's design finalizations of Amy, starting with these two rather grainy yet complete concept pieces from CD's development. The one on the left showing us a full sketch of Amy, with the translation at the top saying plush toy, which leads me to believe these pictures were or ended up being used as a template for the plush designers, as her posture in this picture does emulate something similar to how a plush toy would sit on a desk or something. As for the picture on the right, this is a continuation of the previous picture this time, showing off a sketch from under her neck up, to give better dimensions in terms of quill, nose, and ear length, it seems. Moving on, this was another piece Oshima posted on Twitter, citing its creation around the time of 1992 to 1994, and it being an incomplete image he supervised showcasing Amy in a bunch of different poses. We know this was Hoshino's work, as in the same Twitter thread he then goes on to confirm this was a colored version of Amy's middle design here from this picture. We even got higher quality scans of these images, and while there's nothing really too different with these compared to the other images of Amy shown, as again, it seemed her design was close to, if not finalized by this point, I found these different poses really cool. Even the black and white versus the colored version of this pose, with Amy holding her hands in front of her, was scanned, where we can even see the finer details of this colorized version. Where really the only big difference is that her shoes are a darker shade of blue with this concept design, compared to her final classic design, where they're a lot lighter of a gray, bluish color. I wanted to point something out I found really interesting also. If we compare Oshima's design of Amy versus Hoshino's, while incredibly similar, it does seem that in her earlier concepts, she resembles a lot more of a female version of Sonic, with the thinner arms, larger hair puff in the front and such, that match Sonic's proportions very closely. But with Hoshino's, she resembles more of a Minnie Mouse design a tad more, the kind of character Sega was wanting for Sonic. She shares thicker arms, the more cylindrical pupils, and nose that blends a lot of Minnie's characteristics with Oshima's design to fuse the two. We see this Minnie Mouse design even more so in this full sketch of Amy from Hoshino, as Amy is striking a very similar pose to one of Minnie's most iconic poses here. I really like this image and the darker shading it has too. It's such a beautiful piece. Moving on, we have an early illustration of the iconic Sonic CD image of Sonic carrying Amy to safety. There was actually some small changes made in this compared to the final product, mainly in the coloring, with Amy's shoelaces being orange and her shoes being pink, which in the final product she has blue shoes and red laces. In the concept picture, she also has a more accentuated blush going on in the side of her cheek. Other than that, there isn't too much different in this, but this has always been one of my favorite images from the series, so seeing this full colored sketch of it was super cool. One really interesting image I found while researching for this video was this animation sheet done by Toei Animation and Junio Studios for the Sonic CD intro for Amy. This looks quite one-to-one from her final counterpart in this, and while we don't really see any of these different head movements and such showcased in this sheet, as Amy is only really seen at the ending cutscene with her hands covering her face, these expressive headshots are so cool to me, and this sheet was certainly something they based her off of when transcribing that gorgeous animation.
This animation sheet is awesome, and really gives the impression that they may have had much more planned for that ending cinematic than what we ended up with. In the two images on the right, Amy actually looks quite serious, which is a bit different than the constantly smitten and the often frightened young girl we see in the finished game. As far as context for these images go, they actually remind me of some of Sonic's sections from the final version, nearly like they could have been repurposed. Either way, this animation sheet is really cool, and I always love when stuff like this surfaces, and we get to speculate on how they might have fit in the final product.
And finally, for the last piece of true concept art, we have this super awesome compilation image showing off all the different evolutions of Amy's design compared to the final product. Like many of the other characters we've covered in this character development series, this image was shown off at Sonic's 25th anniversary party at Joyopolis in Tokyo, back in 2016. While this isn't necessarily concept art per se, I did want to show off this image displaying classic Amy's color codes, height, official design, and such that Sega's artists use as a basis when going to draw her. I also love how they specifically have a 100cm line for Sonic's height in comparison too, making her 10 centimeters or 4 inches shorter than Sonic. It's kinda interesting to me how in this, her red headband is a Rambo-like red headband that fully goes around her head all the way to the back of her spine, while in CD's official art, it's only a normal hairband that stays only on her head. Anyways, this image is found in the Sonic Art Assets DVD, which is an official DVD from Sega that was released in 2009, consisting of artwork, color keys, and some concept art of characters throughout the series, up until Unleashed at the time. It consisted of 113 images in total. Since Sonic Adventure, where Amy became a recurring character in Sonic's cast, she's had quite a consistent lineup of voice actors, both English and Japanese. Starting on the English side with Jennifer Dooleyard, who voiced Amy from 1999 to 2004, so Sonic Adventure up till Advance 3. Dooleyard's tenure with the Sonic franchise is actually the only official voice acting she's done in her career. Although Sonic X came out in 2003, the 4Kids cast didn't take over the games till 2005, where Dooleyard was replaced with Lisa Ortiz, who voiced Amy from 2005 up to 2010. So shout out the Hedgehog to Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. Ortiz is still voice acting as of 2021, as she voices Oshawott in the Pokemon series, is in Fire Emblem Heroes, Street Fighter V, Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, Hayuka, and many others. She also reprised her role as Amy in the YouTube radio miniseries by Emu Emi, Sonic and Tails R, which is super cool to hear her come back and still absolutely nail that voice a decade later. As for who voices Amy currently, that'd be Cindy Robinson, who has been voicing the character since 2010 to now, and who I'd imagine is also voicing her for the new game. Robinson has also been featured in Sekiro, Skyrim, Digimon Fusion, and Mass Effect 2, among many other things. Amy has had 2 Japanese voice actors in total, those being Teiko Kawada, who voiced Amy from 1999 till now. Kawada has also been featured in a bunch of other media like Naruto Shippuden, Tales of Phantasia, Blue Dragon, One Piece, and Heartcatch Precure, among many others. Funny enough, there was also one other person who actually did voice Amy in Japan. Only for one game though, that being 2000's Sonic Shuffle, where Emi Motoi voiced her. Motoi has also done a lot of other work in media, being featured in Romeo's Blue Skies, Angel Tales, Full Metal Alchemist, Darker Than Black, and Trigun, to name a few. While Amy was introduced in CD, her impact really became prominent in Sonic Adventure, where she became a main character in the franchise, almost on par with Sonic himself. She's been featured in pretty much every game since 1999 in some aspect, and I would be shocked to not see her in Rangers in some capacity too.
Ah, but who voiced her in CD? I think that's the more important question here. That talent deserves some recognition.
With the introduction of Amy, Naoto Oshima also wanted to expand Sonic's cast with a new rival for Sonic to help flesh his world out. While Amy had influence from the manga and Oshima, Hoshino was solely tasked with coming up with this new rival, and he had a clear idea for the character he was trying to create. He wanted something menacing and sleek that would not only fit perfectly into the world of Sonic, more specifically CD, but would also complement the idea that Eggman would want to, and be capable of, creating a robot to counter Sonic. Enter Metal Sonic.
Long before the days of Shadow the Hedgehog, or even Knuckles, it was Metal that represented the team's first real attempt at giving Sonic a rival. Sure, he has his villain and arch nemesis in Eggman. The role of Big Bad in this series is all tied up. And long live this wonderful mustachioed feminist. He is awesome, but a rival can be something else entirely. A rival makes things personal, and conflict with someone labeled as a rival often boils down to things like pride and self-worth. Sonic needed an enemy that would make him question himself, probably more than he ever has in the past. Maybe even doubt himself. And you have to acknowledge the pure genius of Eggman here, as boy did he deliver on this, effectively handing Sonic a very creepy mirror to stare into.
Creepy indeed, which is what I love about him. On the development side, Oshima and Hoshino were in constant contact with Naka and company during development of Sonic 2 in the West, and CD in the East, which 2 released a year earlier, and funnily enough, also features a metallic counterpart to Sonic in the form of Mecha Sonic. It would be safe to assume that Hoshino knew during development of Sonic 2 that Naka and company at STI were also planning to use a mechanical version of Sonic, but Hoshino went in a complete opposite direction as STI, promoting Metal as a true adversary to Sonic, basically on the same level as Eggman, atop his gorgeous, sleek final design. It was hard to not see him become a smash hit that would stay a favorite in the fan base, well, forever. Metal is certainly in my top 3 favorite characters from the whole series, and actually, Hoshino feels the same way as he discussed in an interview with SegaNerds.com back in 2013, talking about who his favorite character that he designed at Sega was. Metal Sonic would be my favorite character. The reason being is that Metal Sonic is the first character that I created that actually plays a central role in the Sonic universe. There was a Mecha Sonic, but was created by someone else, and Mecha Sonic hasn't had the longevity that Metal Sonic has had. Metal Sonic has continued to appear in many Sonic games, and he has been loved by many throughout his time. He was always created to be a character with longevity.
And as a Metal doppelganger of the main man himself, one of the most recognizable video game characters of all time, longevity is pretty much guaranteed. Metal's appearance is very much modeled on that of the Blue Blur, and his final design is just badass, with all the smaller elements coming together to form one seriously menacing looking bot. You're immediately drawn to the eyes, where all there is to greet you are glowing red irises surrounding pitch black pupils, making for one creepy, soulless stare. Its fins that resemble Sonic's quills have been reduced in number and curved in such a way so as to improve Metal's aerodynamic efficiency. And if that wasn't enough to make it clear that this robot is all about speed, the air intake for the jet engine that makes up its entire torso sits right where Sonic's peach-colored belly would be. And instead of a mouth, Metal has a silver muzzle across its entire face, further removing any sense of a living creature, with the whole design boasting a highly sleek shape and a reflective chrome finish. Sonic's design was always something that attracted the eye, so it's only fitting his evil robotic doppelganger would be the same. And with a design like this, it's no wonder Metal is so popular. But this is the end result. It took an insane amount of revisions and variants to get to this point. And frankly, a lot of them are just as awesome and make for some really interesting discussions.
Some interesting discussions indeed. That being said, let's hop right into that concept art. In Metal's concept art, he has a much more direct evolution in terms of design, compared to Amy, who kept a rather similar design throughout her drafts with Oshima and Hoshino. Let's get started with what seems to be Hoshino's earliest work on the Metallic Menace. That being these very rough sketches of Metal here, where to me, he resembles a lot more of Mecha Sonic from Sonic 2, as he looks more like a direct robot version of Sonic here, with the direct robot translation of Sonic's quills, hands, and shoes. What I do want to point out in this sketch on the left here is the gun or cannon-like attachment he has to his arm. How crazy would that have been?
Yeah, there really is no denying the similarities here with Mecha Sonic from Sonic 2. The buzzsaw-like quills, muzzle shape, and shoes are all strikingly similar to his 16-bit debut. Even the side-on shot looks like it could easily be his ground boost attack from that game. There was definitely some sharing and copying of homework going on between the two teams here, but I think that's really cool. Some of the best things came about by combining multiple ideas and doing a mashup of designs and themes. Don't believe me? Kingdom Hearts called. It wants a word with you.
Say fellas, did somebody mention the door to darkness?
But just on that note of arm cannons and weapons of that type on Metal Sonic, that just reminds me of some of the other awesome Metal prototypes we've seen as far back as the first Sonic Adventure game, where we got a glimpse at this bad boy suspended in a stasis tank aboard the egg carrier. And when these prototypes actually appear in games, I always got a huge kick out of the idea that these weren't just prototypes Sega made for the character, but were actually early revisions that Eggman himself went through when designing Metal. And it's those little flourishes of detail by Sega and Sonic Team that really help make Sonic's universe feel like a living, breathing place. In reality, we all know that these are just various mock-ups by the devs, but by simply putting them in the game, it just adds that extra sense of immersion for the audience. And I always got huge enjoyment out of staring at these guys for ages and wondering just what the hell they were.
We then got these super cool side view sketches of Metal's very early prototype design, and what would be his walking and running animations in some form for these. What I found interesting in these was the little vent here on the back he is sporting that would actually be carried all the way to his final design. And it seems from these pictures, the jet in Metal's back on his final design is nowhere to be found in these sketches. Hoshino even gave him a little robotic tail in the picture in the right. With the same design, we even got some super cool front shots, and to say this isn't a one-to-one cyborg Sonic, I wouldn't know what is then. It's interesting that in this picture and the previous ones, his hands resemble Sonic's gloves with his fingers and all, whereas in Metal's final design, he has claws, and I also found it super cool how the concave jet-like front of Metal has been a key feature of him since his inception. And Hoshino in these even gave him pupils similar to Sonic's, which of course would then get changed for the more intimidating eyes we all know him for. This is one of the coolest pictures from the batch of concept art for Metal in my opinion, because not only do we get his full final prototype design here, but this picture in the top right is so freaking cool. Having Sonic and Metal Sonic reflect each other like two halves of the same whole. I absolutely love this piece here, and it kind of makes me wonder if the OVA took inspiration from this somewhat in this piece here. Also, the bottom sketch of this concept art is amazing, showcasing Metal in his full running animation at the time. The animation being very similar to Sonic's, but also having those jets propel him forward throughout his whole back, and even on his head, which is kind of interesting as in the final, we only get the singular iconic jet engine. I think Hoshino made the right move on this too, as his final design is a lot more sleeker looking with the singular jet.
Yeah, like Eldarin, the first thing I noticed when I seen this image was the half and half shot of Sonic and Metal, and it immediately put me in mind of that point about 30 minutes into the OVA movie, where Sonic and Metal are shown briefly fusing together as one. And with the limited amount of material that movie had to go on, with Metal's only real appearances at that stage being in CD and the comics, it's not too hard to imagine that the creators may have actually had to have gone back to Metal's early concept work for inspiration. And that moment is just iconic. So whatever the reason it came about, I'm very glad it did.
Now as we move forward, we start getting even closer to Metal's final design, ditching the more clunkier look he previously had for something a lot more sleeker, giving him some thinner legs and arms, along with ditching the beefier hands for the more sharper claw-like fingers and those real intimidating eyes that would both stick in his design. He's also missing ears for some reason in this, but anyways, I also want to point out in this sketch how the bulkier quills that the previous Metal Sonic design had are dropped for the sleeker 3-quill design that Metal would keep from here on out. This was another super cool piece that I wanted to show off. It's very similar to Metal's final design, as we can see Hoshino had it pretty much locked in here, but I found it super cool how Hoshino really emphasized that glossy look he has in the final product, and there isn't too much different here, but I figured it was worth noting the addition of the ears to the design, very similar to Sonic's, along with the more cup-shaped hand here instead of the claws for this piece. These pieces are what looks to be the completed design of Metal Sonic for CD, and I absolutely love it. The image on the left is showcasing his front, rear, and side view, while the image on the right is showing us different angles of the design, and a full picture of the jet engine in the back. I absolutely adore his design with how intimidating, sleek, and threatening he looks. It's a big reason why he's one of my favorite characters. Hoshino also sketched out some odds and ends of Metal when getting that final design just right that I found really interesting. I'm not going to go over each exact one here since they are pretty much all reflective of the final design, but I do want to point out at the top right here how Hoshino had two different versions of Metal's threatening eyes. He must have been deciding between the two of them. The text here at the top says, "Don't make narrow," of course referring to the eyes being circles rather than ovals. I want to go down a bit further on this picture here, where it says jet engine appearance, and shows off his back, and also the cool logistics of how Metal's feet move when walking. Super cool stuff like the small details Hoshino gave to his foot here, where it droops down to the sides due to him being made out of a heavy metal material. In our final full pieces here of Metal, starting on the right, we got this full colored sketch of Metal's final design by Hoshino, which looks freaking awesome. Atop that, we also got on the left here, a fully colored and shaded version of the picture on the right, along with these super awesome sketches of Metal from the back, and my favorite being the one on the top left here, where he just looks so threatening in this pose with his head tilted and such. So cool.
That top left one seriously gives me Neo Metal vibes. Something about the top quill looking a bit taller than usual, mixed with the expression on his face, just screams Neo Metal to me. And while Neo isn't as practical in its design in terms of speed, there's no denying he looks totally badass, and is rocking a bod any aspiring metal overlord would be envious of.
Much like Amy's concept art, we also got a compilation of art showing Metal's design evolution that we previously just covered. This too was shown off at Sonic's 25th anniversary party at Joyopolis. It's still neat to see the progression throughout his designs right next to each other though. Metal Sonic's model sheet was also featured in that same Sonic Art Assets DVD, showcasing his different color keys and height, so the artists working at Sega when drawing Metal could have a basis to use. And while this isn't really related to Metal Sonic's initial concept art, I just had to show this insane piece from the cancelled Sonic game on the Saturn, Sonic Extreme, which I'm not going to go too deep into detail on as that's a whole video's worth of stuff right there, but let me tell you, there was some crazy designs, like this new form of Metal Sonic called the Metal Sonic Mark IV. This art was showcased in the book called The History of Sonic the Hedgehog, and man, this design is so cool. It's completely different and gives a very sci-fi look to the character, which looks amazing in my eyes. It certainly would have been crazy to see what this would have looked like finished, of course.
This could easily pass for concept art for Attack Form Deoxys from the 3rd generation of Pokemon. And while Attack Deoxys was a bit of a glass cannon, there's no denying he looked awesome. I'm really glad Eldarin showed me this piece actually, as I somehow have never seen this before in all my time with the series, and it's just beautiful.
While Metal Sonic generally talks in beeps and computer noises, he's actually had 4 voice actors over the years, 2 English and 2 Japanese voice actors. Starting on the English side with Gary Dehan, who voiced Metal Sonic only in the Sonic OVA that came out in 1999 for the US. Dehan has also worked on Sakura Wars, Ninja Resurrection, and The Legend of Crystania, among others. While the other voice actor for Metal Sonic is just a little known guy in the Sonic fanbase, known as Ryan Drummond, who voiced Metal Sonic in Sonic Heroes, and of course, shaped the attitude and voice of Sonic for the first time we heard him talk in Sonic Adventure up to Sonic Advance 3. Excluding his Sonic related stuff, Drummond was also featured in Call of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth, the Godfather 2 video game, and is currently reprising his role as Sonic for the same audio drama Sonic and Tails are, that Lisa Ortiz is a part of. On the Japanese side, Masami Kikuchi voiced Metal Sonic and also Sonic himself for the Sonic OVA. Kikuchi has also worked on Dragon Ball Super, Digimon Adventure, Dynasty Warriors, Gundam, Beyblade Shogun Steel, and Hunter x Hunter among other shows. As for Metal's appearance in Heroes, the amazing Junichi Kanemaru voiced him, also voicing Sonic from Sonic Adventure in 1999 all the way till now. Kanemaru's other projects, excluding Sonic, have included Hunter x Hunter, Digimon Tamers, Sailor Moon, and Dragon Ball GT to name a few. Metal has become a mainstay throughout the franchise, not on the scale of Amy, but is certainly up there as a fan favorite. After CD, Metal would appear in Sonic Drift 2, Sonic R, Knuckles Chaotix, Sonic Adventure as 100% Unlockable, Sonic Adventure 2 for the Versus mode, and a few others, but he truly wouldn't get his time to shine again until Sonic Heroes, where he was brought back as the main bad guy, and also got a new redesign for his Neo Metal Sonic appearance, also done by Hoshino. Man, I bet that had to be super cool redesigning this now fan favorite character that you created. Metal has been very prominent in the franchise since Heroes 2, getting an appearance in a majority of the games all the way up till Mania, Forces, Team Sonic Racing, and the soon to be released Sonic Colors Ultimate, which I really hope they make him an unlockable skin for Sonic if you 100% the game, like how it is in SA1. Well guys, that's going to be it. Amy and Metal are some of my favorites in the franchise. Anyways, I want to give a big thank you to Mark from Ace Card Gaming for working on this video with me.
You're most welcome, dude. Despite debuting in what was at the time an obscure game on even more obscure hardware, Amy and Metal have been on an extraordinary journey in the nearly 30 years of their existence. At their worst, they always have the sympathy of the fans, who all know in their hearts that these two wonderful characters deserve so much better. And at their best, take part in some of the most gripping and entertaining stories this series has to offer. So when I got the call from Eldarin asking me to come on and speak about these two icons, it wasn't even a question in my mind. I've enjoyed talking about both Amy and Metal to no end on my own channel. So getting to come on here and tag team this with you has been a genuine pleasure, my friend. And thank you for inviting me. And for everyone watching, a big thank you to you as well for taking the time to listen to my crazy Sonic ramblings. And as always guys, take care.
Make sure to go check Mark out as he makes some seriously fantastic nitty-gritty game analysis on the Sonic franchise. And right now, for Sonic's 30th, he's even doing a 3-part deep dive into Sonic 3 and Knuckles. It's seriously amazing. And also, I want to give another big thank you to Chaomix for translating the Japanese verbiage used on these concept art pieces. Definitely make sure to give both these guys some love, as they 100% deserve it. Their channels will be in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you all learned some cool new facts about these awesome characters. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video.